Well, hello everybody, and welcome back. I've got another book review for you, and this one I think is a very interesting one. So we've got Secrets of Speed, Seduction, Mastery by Jefferies. The subtitle is How to Master the Art and Science of Getting Any Woman into Bed in 20 minutes or less. Now, I don't know. I don't quite know about that. I guess it depends on... Well, he claims anyway that it is these patterns and material in the book. I don't quite know about that. I think it depends also on some other things as well. But anyway, Jefferies, very interesting dude. I've seen a decent handful of interviews with him. Technically, he's considered like the godfather of the pickup community. He was sort of like the very first one to get into that sort of thing years back. And what's interesting is that he is a hypnotist and a teacher slash user, whatever you want to call it, of NLP, which is it's a neuro-linguistic programming. It's supposedly a way to use certain trigger words, per se, that sort of cut into somebody's subconscious mind and make them think and feel a certain way based on sort of like subliminal messaging, I guess, within these words. And they're very common words. It's just the way that they're structured in the way that they're patterned that causes basically a subconscious response that triggers certain emotions. And I find that very interesting. And whatever, hypnotism and NLP has existed for a really long time. But he was the first one that had actually quite a genius idea in a lot of ways, and very clever, very creative way to... He was the first one that thought of, I wonder if I can use this sort of knowledge to influence, like, dating and pickup and sex and whatnot. Like, if there's a way to take the knowledge that was generally used for other therapeutic type things from NLP and apply it to that, which is very clever, very interesting, and I do believe that he knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's doing. I've watched a lot of stuff of him. I definitely think he knows what he's doing. Okay, I'll hand it that. My main thing is that I don't know, when you read these patterns, it's not how a lot of people talk. You would have to train a long time to speak these patterns in a way that seems like it would be something that you would actually say, and you wouldn't be sort of clunky with it, because when you try to speak, like, it's different even like say doing a video or you're acting or something like that. It's different to like have lines and of some sort of different character, or you're presenting something and you're taking that on and sort of acting as if you speak like that all the time. That's one thing, but to be in a one-on-one conversation with somebody, in this case a woman, it would be very hard to seamlessly throw out these talking patterns if it's not how you normally talk, without it coming across as awkward or just not yourself or just out of place compared to the other conversation. So he basically says that it's like magic. Like, you learn these patterns and like you're good to go. And I believe that works for him, and I believe it works for some people that maybe are inclined to speak that way already. I personally don't know how well that would work. I haven't even had a chance to fully recite any of these patterns, because there is quite a bit of memory involved in them, and it just seems it doesn't seem like it rolls off the tongue very seamlessly, at least for me. So my recommendation, if you're gonna learn into this kind of stuff, is use bite-sized versions of it. Like, even if it's not as effective or not effective at all, for that matter, just like start slow. And he does mention that in here too. I'm not saying that he doesn't mention that. It is brought up in the book, but start off with just small portions of it, small versions of it, and sort of see if you can work your way up, or just add what you can remember and what you can seamlessly say into just your overall approach to dating and interacting with women and stuff like that. That would be my advice. That's probably the best way to go about using that material. However, that's basically the main selling point of this book and of his work. Sorry. But the part that I find the most fascinating, the most interesting, and the most useful is, and I've studied a lot of different approaches and methods for this kind of a thing, and his isn't the one that I jive with the most, but I jive with it enough that I do find myself very interested in it, and I believe it's worth learning and taking the time to incorporate into your process. But so aside the language patterns and that, and he's mentioned this before, he's like, this is basically how to pick up women, this is sexual escalation, whatnot. But aside that, it isn't all just like vanity. Like, what he teaches is deeply healing, because, you know, like hypnotherapy and that is like a real thing. Like, it is a healing procedure at the same time. And I find some of his mindsets, like his inner game mindsets, are really, really good. Like, one thing, and it actually, after reading it and after hearing him talk about it, it totally changed my mind on how I think of a lot of emotional states. He said, say approach anxiety. You're going to approach a woman, you have anxiety. Just anxiety in general, or, you know, embarrassment or shame, whatever sort of negative emotion that you might have, or positive emotion for that matter. He said a lot of people are like, oh, I need to overcome my anxiety. I need to keep, you know, grinding it down so that it's like something that I'm going to overcome. But when you say that and you apply that method, basically you are implying that it is a thing. It is a physical thing. He said it's like lifting, like similar to like lifting weights. Like, your muscle is a real thing. It's attached to your body. So therefore, when you lift weights, you are strengthening that muscle. You're building that muscle. If you don't lift weights and you don't exercise or whatever, you are, you know, the muscle's going weaker. It's an actual thing that can grow and diminish, I guess, right? Like, it's an actual part of your body. But emotions are not. There is no physical, like, yeah, it's your nervous system, which is a physical thing, of course, but there is no muscle attached to your body for anxiety, fear, shame, any of that kind of stuff. It is not a physical attachment to your body that you can overcome, strengthen, diminish, or remove in any way, shape, or form. What it is it is a process. It's a process that is part of a greater journey of emotional development, right? Like when you have anxiety, it's a very natural thing. It's not an unnatural thing, and it's not something that is locked in as the solid object. It's an emotional and a nervous system procedure that it's an activity that you must go through in order to expand into, the further directions of the interaction and just life in general, right? Like it doesn't always have to be applied to dating or pickup or whatever. It's just, if I'm explaining that right, it's not a physical part of your body. It's an emotional state. It's an activity that you engage in. It's part of a process attached to a greater outcome, per se, right? So I think that's very useful information for basically any emotion, good or bad, that you might be feeling. Just a really thoughtful and true way to look at it. And I think that is very deeply healing. And there's a lot of sort of physiological methods that he teaches too, of just like reducing the stress of things in a lot of ways. Like there's one approach anxiety method that he was talking about, or like a post approach during communication, where you might be feeling that nervousness, where he basically says to get grounded, like just focus on your feet on the ground, like allow the bottom of your shoes and your feet to just really feel the ground. And he said still remain looking straight on at the person, like physically with your eyeballs, but expand your vision into your peripherals. So you're looking at the person, but you're focusing on the peripherals. And that's because when you feel, scared, you go into tunnel vision, and that's why the person standing right in front of you, in this case a pretty girl, is very intimidating, because you got that. It's like you even though you're like, it's almost like your body feels like you're threatened by this interaction. Like you don't want to be embarrassed, you don't want to screw it up, whatever. So you get that tunnel vision, right? But if you focus on your peripherals, that tells your body to remain calm and that everything's safe. Because when you're happy and you're feeling good and you're not stressed and you're just chilling out, basically, your vision expands to its full capacity. Like you're not zeroing in on this one thing that could cause you harm or emotional stress or whatever, right? And there's a handful of other things like that as well, which I find that part of it fascinating. I find it very helpful. I think it would help most men on their journey with this kind of thing. I think it's really cool that that he took these psychological type procedures and ended up correlating it to dating and pickup and sex and all that kind of stuff. I find that very interesting. And like I said, the patterns, I'm sure they work, but I think you have to either practice a hell of a lot, which could diminish just natural chemistry if you're focusing too heavily on it, or you would have to be somebody that just happens to be naturally inclined to speak similarly to how he writes in here, or you have to be like him, which is like a skilled like hypnotist kind of person that has that sort of cadence to their voice that almost kind of is calming and influential, just from those people like that, like just like like their voice is just calming to listen to. Well, he's kind of one of those guys, right? So I think and I don't know if he was always like that. He probably trained himself to be like that. I don't know. But so it probably works for him, and it probably works for people that are inclined that sort of way, is what I'm saying. But just anybody out there with just any sort of regular medium pitched voice, like myself or whoever, I don't know if the speech patterns would be as lucrative as they're made out to be, maybe. And I'm not saying that in like a rude way or whatever, or diminishing the work that he's put into what he does. But it's an interesting book. This is actually the second book he wrote. I haven't read the first one. I just came across this on Amazon, and I was like, oh, it seems like an interesting read, so I'll look into that. And I've already watched a handful of interviews, as I said. And this is basically like it's basically a collection of a bunch of emails he's sent out to clients that he's had, because he does like online coaching and stuff like that. So it's like, and they might be like edited to go deeper, but they're basically the rough shell of each sort of chapter or module, as they're called in here, is like they're based off of emails that he's sent out to his clients. So And it's not a hard read. It's large print. It's not a long book. It's got a lot of valuable information in there. Something that I think, men, pick up a copy of this, read it, retain as much of it as you can, practice bite-sized bits of what he says, and just have it on you, and just own the book so you can refer back to it sometimes, and I think it will help you out. So anyway, that is my review of Secrets of Speed Seduction Mastery, How to Master the Art and Science of Getting Any Woman into Bed in 20 minutes or less, by the godfather of pickup, Ross Jefferies. So I hope you enjoyed this review. Thank you very much for watching, and you have a good day.